Hey YouTube, my name's John and I've covered other cults. I follow other YouTubers who cover cults as well. Many of them are right wing, some of them are left wing. Uh, if you want to find me covering the Legion of Christ, you can go to my old YouTube channel. You can find the link in the contact page on my website, untrained.org. Now, a lot of truth has been said about the garden on TikTok and some so called news websites I had never heard of. But unfortunately, it's always been laced with a lot of the same misinformation or disinformation. And it looks as if they're all reading off the same script. Probably because they're scared for their lives if they go there, or maybe also because they're scared of the horrifying relevance of what they'd find out. But I've been to the garden before anybody knew anything, and I've spoken to those who were there from the beginning. I've also visited other rainbow communities in Western New York. I've also read H.P. Lovecraft. You'll find out why that's relevant soon. And I'm now here to set the record straight to move us forward toward a more productive conversation on how to approach this very nationwide phenomenon, as again, you'll soon see. So I'm going to start just by breaking down what I call the actors or the people at the garden. Okay. Number one, just a 101 point here. Tree, whose real name, or as close as we can come, is Jack, indeed, as he claims, has not been there long. His importance there obviously is due to the fact that he has a British accent and a hot girl and a YouTube account, all of which a combination no one else can claim. And he's traveling the world on daddy's income or whatever. So is she. Okay. I'll get to them in a second. But we got to start with the person who actually runs this show there. That's Patrick Martion, Martion. Good luck pronouncing that right. Patrick Martion is the owner. And if indeed there be any co-owners, then they don't extend beyond Patrick's own immediate family and have been said to perhaps include Patrick's ex-wife and ex-mother-in-law. Patrick is a physically abusive sociopath, that is to say, he's violent, a psychologically abusive narcissist, a kleptomaniac, chronic thief, many of them are, and quite consciously and deliberately a harmful cult leader in the making, a la David Koresh. Though Rainbow lore has it that he came by much of these characteristics honestly, since his father was what is best termed a warlord of the Rainbow tribe, notorious for beating women. Patrick has, he never talks about that, of course. Keep up. Patrick has a copy of Rainbow Tribe's 1,000-page or so charter, and this is someone who we're told has misspelled the word road. They always disclaim the fact that they're rainbow, only because if rainbows started self-identifying, then we figure out pretty quickly that it's all just a fake hippie mafia of crass capitalists, literally money worshipping, I can't stress this point enough, drug dealers and slumlords pretending to be communist hippies. And they're being smart in moving and striving to stall that overdue RICO investigation for as long as they can. Now, obviously, that's my theory, but it stands. Anyone with critical thinking skills within the Rainbow Tribe is harassed and told they have a strange vibe or energy. They're routinely called negative or hateful. And they're discouraged from digging deeply, honestly, in any field of knowledge of current events, however extraneous to the specific community, encouraged rather to be lulled by the xenophobic Babylon moniker they're tirelessly applying to the outside world. In short, to be isolated and mindless so they can accept the cult's groupthink, so they won't be a threat to challenge the enterprise that's using the untutored idealism of youth as a cover for their real operation. So the whole dynamic seems to rely on psychologically isolating members. The BITE or BITE model is routinely used to identify cults. BITE stands for behavior, information, thought, and emotions. Now, the Garden's more lasting members clearly work hard to control the thoughts and emotions of newer members. That way, anyone who could conceivably pose a credible threat to the enterprise can be demonized and isolated, lest they uncover the truth. Patrick is, again, functionally illiterate, but because he has money and is rainbow royalty, he is able to lord it over people. Literally nothing is beneath Patrick, but as I always say, everyone at the Garden is beneath Patrick, except they usually don't feel that until they're marked for expulsion in what usually shakes down as a display of hive mind, the likes of which, honestly, I've never seen anywhere, and I've been places. I can't stress enough that their bylaws and council meetings are all a sham, and that Patrick and those on whom he bestows favor rule supreme over the rest. Moving on, one such individual is My Win, Patrick's Vietnamese mistress, who targets certain members for verbal abuse for no discernible reason other than that she's a trust fund brat, and because therefore she can. Um, Moving on to another ostensibly female member, Ariel or Rel Gumson. She's the longest staying member. She's been there 4 years solid, never kicked out. And you'll be amazed by what she does. Ariel or Rel spikes drinks and otherwise pressures guys to sleep with her, then has them kicked out by wielding some kind of hypnotic power over the other members, and otherwise uses men with total impunity. Does no work. I kid you not. Rel is a psychologically abusive narcissist who acts with insultingly obvious hypocrisy and deceitfulness, as well as political incorrectness, the likes of which I've never even heard of. It is a bit of a mystery how Rel has the leeway to be so treacherous, and again, amazingly insensitive person, while others are removed for doing far, far less than she does. All in an ostensibly democratic community. Right. So Rel appears to be part of a mysterious, read moneyed, I think, inner circle, together with Patrick as the owner of the property, all of whose members are advanced in the opaque arts of mind control, Machiavellian politics, and otherwise getting away with being horrible to certain visitors, especially, and members as well, with little to no apparent backlash. Now, Rel's father is ostensibly obscenely wealthy. Was once overheard to tell her that he was writing her or wiring her $70,000 one time. And though she has been called white on social media, Rel is actually a graduate of an Orthodox Jewish Hebrew school in Albany, New York, or that area. So Rel is clearly a Talmudic chauvinist who is constantly singing songs clearly intended to be offensive to Latinos. Something about some Hispanic dish, I forgot what it was, just obnoxious as well as offensive. You can check her rock and Rel if you have the stomach for it. She's also loudly and repeatedly calling Native American customs superstitions. We worked on these dream catchers. All right, that's another story for another time. But suffice it to say, yeah, she has no cultural competence, let alone, yeah, she just loves offending minority peoples. No backlash. How much backlash? No, none. Zero backlash. But then anyone who has a problem with her is then gaslighted by all present because while pretending to be communists, they secretly all worship the one who gets mad money from daddy. Okay. So now her inexcusable behaviors, again, always enabled by everyone who lasts at the garden, which I would call the harem, I think. Maybe some twisted kind of rebellion against her family of origin, since Rel has been known to claim that her family are mainly social workers. What we do know about the backstory here is that most people in Rel's hometown just assumed she was nuts when she turned her dead dog into a belt. I would like to say, though, that autistics are generally unconventional but harmless. In fact, we're quite often the opposite. We're the recipients of violence. But in her case, in this cultish milieu, Rel has managed to become quite harmful indeed, evading enforcement of what I consider some of the most important laws in our country, namely those that deal with sex predators, serial sex predators, as she appears to be, ostensibly and allegedly. And yes, Rel made a cat into a hat, which I guess, among other things, probably wasn't very kosher of her. Oh, the shame. Um, and this is nothing against Jews or Judaism, by the way. This is about Rel. Okay, just to be clear on that point. Now, Jack, or Tree, is a newcomer who, again, like I said, because of his British accent, instantly became these monsters' de facto PR guy. He too actually made constant and obvious unwanted sexual advances to others at the garden. Jack, or Tree's paramour, Julia, was allegedly almost raped by one of Rel's boy toys by the name of Josh. And this precipitated Josh's, I guess, ahead of schedule expulsion from the garden. And that's all I know about that. One fourth person who nonetheless I think is important. Bobby O'Shea is a chef from Boston who's verbally abusive, but like he's very selective and sneaky about it. So this, roughly speaking, inner circle all appear to act in concert and never show any serious disagreement among themselves, or when they do, they still gang up against those who try to bring civility back, much less nonviolent communication, as they're constantly touting. That was actually why I was expelled, because I was encouraging people to be nonviolent in their communication, among other things. And the rest everyone else seems instinctively to bend to their will, no matter how obviously flimsy their accusations, their reasoning, and their breach of their own bylaws, which they had to do all three of those things to get me out. And they're always simping or playing dumb and draining the brains of members. If you aren't basically breathing through your mouth or tracking your knuckles, so to speak, you won't last long. That's just a fact. No apologies. I'm done playing. So now moving on to the second part of this, which is just some common questions that have been all over the internet. And I'm just going to tackle them because they haven't been. Number one, is the garden a cult? Oh my fucking God. Yes, it's a cult. Okay, albeit a left-wing and prodigiously passive-aggressive cult. And I say this chiefly because of the aforementioned hive mind against members who've done nothing wrong, but are simply targeted by the asshole owner and his pervert cronies, because money and narcissism reign supreme, and because the rules and meetings are always just for show. Now, TikTok is just going to have to come to terms with the fact that there are such things as cults that present themselves, keyword, present themselves as left-wing, and they tailor the jargon to bait intelligent and sensitive people when the leadership are the exact opposite. Namely, they're hardcore ideologues and ultimately just heartless capitalists. Again, they don't even read. I mean, I'm just saying, it's okay to be illiterate, but when you're in charge of literate people, nope. All right. Where was I here? For example, a good example of a left-wing cult that I've covered, or pretending to be left-wing, the ESWA, or Eastern Service Workers Association. Look that up. I'll wait. Go ahead. Hit pause. Look up the ESWA. Get a sense of what's really going on in this country. Second question, is the garden right-wing? I already answered that. The garden is predominantly left-wing, and here's why it's left-wing, okay? They have huge cloth signs that say Black Lives Matter and compost capitalism. literally one of the major hangers on there, the mandatory emasculated LSD burnout, I guess, goes by the name Carl. I guess his trail name is Eco. So Carl, or Eco, proclaims that he's named after Karl Marx. Very proud of that. Meanwhile, right-wingers who were open about it, by the way, Phil never said one right-wing thing as long as I was there. Sorry, Q-baiters. Right-wingers who are open about it are consistent, there were a few in the summer, are consistently spoken ill of by the inner circle and don't last long there. I mean, even Phil did not have a stable place there, all right, or with any rainbow family. They treat him like scum. He was beaten up after he left by other rainbows. Oh, peace and love. Yeah, fucking right. Okay. Getting the idea, maybe? I hope. All right, we'll keep moving. Inner circle members and also elderly visitors are invariably either philosophical materialists or hardcore Marxists of some strain. And again, this is all a ruse, cloaking some kind of, I guess, drug cartel that uses hippies to increase their property's equity. But that ruse is the only thing the visitor and member experience until it's too late. There's no, don't ask questions or you're going to be in a world of trouble. All right, the third question. Is it really this huge problem that the garden gives its address out? I don't think so. I mean, fuck's sakes. All businesses give their addresses out. I've seen it where they don't, and they're just harboring single parents who are illegally keeping their children away from the other parent. So I mean, choose your fucking poison, kids. Fourth question. Is it really this huge problem that the garden has an open door policy and doesn't do background checks? Here again, they're in a bit of a bind because they claim to not trust Babylon. And that's how their cult-twisted minds label you and me, by the way. So it would be inconsistent if they were to take police records seriously. They're anti-police. Do you understand? Okay. So with that having been, and I sympathize. I am very anti-police. I just don't have a tribe. I don't have a criminal enterprise that I'm for. On principle, I'm anti-police. Like, imagine that. Yeah, that's the kind of people they bait. And I'm done. With that having been said, though, they routinely harbor blatantly hardened thugs who don't have one hippie bone in their bodies, but I think are often there because they supply the hard drugs. So that's your clue, who's who, if you're ever in that kind of situation, God forbid, okay? Or goddess, or lack of God forbid. Anyone forbid. It's not about theology. So, and that, again, that's your first clue that literally nothing about them is what it seems to be. And that they're abjectly interdependent rather. And that if you haven't figured it out by now, I'm just going to say it again. They're a cult. Okay. Next question. Does the garden's social pressure extend beyond Patrick's property? Yeah. No, this is not one of the questions people have asked, but they should be. The short answer is absolutely yes. There is a fuck ton of illegal drug trade in this area. I am in red boiling. I probably shouldn't have said that, but fuck it. It's impossible to know where the garden ends and where the meth labs begin. Since the garden was closed, I've seen many garden vehicles, from sedans to repurposed school buses, at the Walmart in Lafayette. When the garden closed, I started noticing that even those who had formerly complained to me about how bizarrely evil the garden was, such as those who had offered me shelter when I was forced out amid Patrick's narcissistic rage, and who were the source of much of what I've been able to come to learn about the garden's key players, their backgrounds and their various antisocial habits that we've been covering here, and who were initially overjoyed that it had closed, these same people abruptly and inexplicably dropped their easy manner with me and began playing host to the very worst elements from the garden. Playing host. What I mean is that literally putting them up, letting them crash at their place. And I'm talking Patrick and Rel specifically. So complete 180, something ain't right. Something stinks to high heaven here. Now, the people I'm referring to, the people who were anti-garden and then pro-garden when it closed, okay? What? Yep, you heard right. These people were known to deal in marijuana, at least. That's what they were open about. Who knows what else? And it's long felt as if the garden has been growing and offering marijuana to local law enforcement. Now, please note that I haven't used the word bribe, but if you have a criminal mind and can connect the dots, then good for you. Seventh question, well, this is just, again, my question. Which came first, the social media fiasco or the law enforcement crackdown? I honestly don't know. No matter what Patrick may conjure up, because he's a pathological liar, as anyone will tell you who's being honest, I don't know which came first. But if you do know, then please comment below. Since I think that could tell us a lot more about what's really going on here, potentially. So that's my challenge. Who can figure that out? All right. All I know is that after I left around the first of the year, 2020, it was actually New Year's Eve. I posted my review like a week later on every website I could remember, people saying they had found the garden on. And then the next thing I knew, the garden's minions, well, 3 months later, I should say, the garden's minions were all over TikTok, which I never used TikTok before. And it was blowing up. It was all just blowing up in their capped faces, I guess. So, yeah, I was honestly, at the time, too busy trying to build what the garden pretended to be. And please, also in the comments below, let me know if you're interested in that, in this area, like doing what they pretended to do. That's simple, because that's amazing. All right, in conclusion, while I'm much relieved that TikTok, again, which is owned by China, has somehow managed to play its part in exposing and closing the garden, even as you'll probably realized by now, it probably wasn't for the right reasons. I still think it's important that we, at the very least, question those who hasten to say, well, the garden can't be called a cult, or that it can't be associated with Rainbow Tribe. On both of which claims I call total fucking bullshit. Basically, thanks TikTok, but we actual investigators will take it from here, okay? Well, we'll continue to rely on TikTok to take us deep into the dark contours of political correctness. That's what they're good at. But meanwhile, back in reality land, the garden is absolutely a cult, a broken society at best. Maybe a mirror into what we are. Maybe that's why we don't want to know this. And the garden is absolutely tied to the Rainbow Tribe. And the sooner we start to connect the dots, the sooner we can starve these monsters of the blood of our nation's youth, for whom we can certainly do better than we're doing. But I never said it would be easy. So that's all I have to say, and all I care to say about this festering sore on America's rural culture. Apart from Lafayette, Tennessee, they have cells in Asheville and Ocala, Florida. They're constantly talking about these two places just out of the clear blue sky over at the garden that they were when it was open. So those are two places to look into, Asheville, Ocala. I can only hope that someone can use what I've shared to clean out those places too, and any other similar types of hives. Now go forth and fix this shit. And for fuck's sake, get the fuck off of TikTok. Amen.